When it comes to your retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everyone else has? Of course not. You're unique and have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated just like a number. This is your retirement. So it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you've found the Retire Your Way podcast with ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you won't find generic, run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave, Chase, and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement at a time using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hats and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now.
I'm Ron Stutz. When it comes to financial planning, it seems that it's mainly focused on getting people to retirement, but you don't hear a lot of talk about financial planning and investing during those golden years of retirement, which is said to be even more critical because missteps are that much more disastrous in retirement. Today, Chase Lopez is here on the Retire Your Way podcast. Chase, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, great to be here, Ron. It's been a while since I was on the podcast, so it's great to be talking to our great audience today.
Well, we have a lot to talk about today, and this particular topic seems right up your alley because I know that this is kind of the overarching idea surrounding what you all do at ILG Financial.
Absolutely, Ron. And what you just described is what we call moving from the accumulation phase of your investing life to the distribution phase of your investing life. And all the advice that we hear about investing is really for that accumulation phase. We're trying to get to retirement, essentially while we're saving for retirement. And the advice that everyone gets is pretty much the same across the board. You know, put in as much as you can, don't touch the money, right? And look for investments that give you the best average rate of return over time to grow your bucket for retirement.
We all have heard the same stuff for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But once you get about 5 to 7 years from retirement, I would say, or already in retirement, whether you know it or not, you have entered the distribution phase of your financial life. And the rules in the distribution phase, and by extension, the consequences, are entirely different. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to do is just take a little look at some of the reasons this is true, and then we'll kind of discuss 3 major things that you want to make sure you're getting right in retirement.
Okay, what are those 3 things that you want to make sure you get right?
Yeah, so the 3 things really is you want to get your portfolio allocations correct, and that may sound intuitive, but we'll dive in a little bit on what you want to do there as you enter the distribution phase. Also, having affordable health care even when your health declines. Health care can be one of the biggest costs in retirement, so you want to make sure you have that, taken care of for, as you put it, those golden years. Mm-hmm. And you want to make arrangements to get help should the day come when you can't manage your affairs anymore.
Okay.
So one of the pitfalls, or really a lot of the unknowns that we have as we, enter these golden years, is retirees don't know how their investment portfolios are going to perform in retirement, right? We don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. I always make the joke with clients when they ask, what do we think is going to happen in the markets, over 3, 6, 12 months, whatever they kind of ask. I always make the joke, my crystal ball is in the shop, but once it's out, I'll have all the answers, right?
Nobody really has one of those things, do they?
Exactly. And then also, retirees don't know how long they'll be drawing money from their portfolios, right? We don't know how long this money has to last, and we don't know what their health will be like in retirement and what that will kind of look like as far as care that they need and really longevity, right? Just some statistics to throw out there. If you make it to 70 as a male, you will live an average of about 15 years past that, and for a female, it's about 17 years.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't know is about 34% of those men and about 45% of those women will live into their 90s. So if we're banking on having longevity, which by the numbers we should, we really just want to know that our money is going to be there for us, down the line when we get into those later years.
living a lot longer these days than we used to is really a good thing, but it really causes a problem and causes you to need more planning, that's for sure, and things get a little bit more complicated. And that's where you come in at ILG Financial.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a lot of people don't, not that they don't know, but they don't think about is even though our lives, our longevity is going to continue to get longer just because of medical advancements. We've seen that, over the past 20 years, and that'll just continue as we move forward. But those years that we're getting extended, right? We're not spring chickens there, right? There's going to be some costs that are associated with that. So we just want to your point, make sure we plan for those things down the line.
Now, the big three you're talking about, getting portfolio allocations right, having affordable health care even if your health declines, and also making arrangements to get help should the day come when they can't manage their own affairs. Chase, let's start with getting your portfolio allocations right. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's a great question. In retirement, it can be scary to deal with these bear markets. We're recording now December of 2022, and this year couldn't be a better example of that. And this is a legitimate concern that should be addressed, right? However, especially with funds that we can leave for the long term, the market can be a great way to get returns while staying, relatively liquid. Okay. Now, the key there is to build up your nest egg, right, with high quality stocks or high quality companies, and avoid anything that seems, speculative or doesn't have a long-term track record. A great example of that is a lot of the cryptocurrency that we're seeing right now. That is something that, we probably want to avoid in our golden years. When prices are soaring, like we're seeing right now, equities or the stock market can act as an inflation hedge. In the market, it can be a great place for the right bucket of money for things that you can afford to let sit and can't afford to take a little bit of risk. So when we're talking about letting it sit, really what we're talking about is money in the market. We want to make sure that we're comfortable leaving that for at least 8 to 10 years to deal with those bear markets that we just kind of alluded to.
A lot of strategy goes into this, I know, but please continue.
There are also things like structured notes with which people might not be aware of, and dividend-paying stocks, and they can be helpful, to your portfolio because they provide income streams, and that can help counterbalance if we have, a down market like we're seeing this year.
Right.
If investors are prioritizing capital preservation, which essentially means, right, we're not trying to be as risky as overperformance. We can also look at things like alternative investments. And really, Ron, what we're seeing right now is a big push towards these alternative investments. And the reason is the Federal Reserve, they've been kind enough to let us know that they have been raising interest rates, and they're going to continue to raise interest rates. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, and a lot of people are unaware of this, so it's very important that we at least touch on it a little bit here, is if you own, let's say, a bond fund, and all that means is it's a fund and it holds, hundreds of different bonds. As interest rates go up, the value of those bonds actually goes down. And it seems a little counterintuitive, but I challenge anyone out there listening, if you look at the performance of your bond funds for this year, the year 2022, you will see that those bond funds have really been taking it on the chin, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. So with that as kind of the backdrop, alternative investments may be prudent for some of that money that you used to allocate to bonds. Lastly, it's always good to have enough cash on hand in case of an emergency. So, typically we like to say 6 to 12 months of an emergency fund sitting in cash. And the bonus for the higher interest rates is a lot of online banks right now are paying around 2 to 2.5% just for holding your money there. So it pays to shop around and look for those, high interest rate savings accounts with your bank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things are getting a little bit better when it comes to interest rates, that's for sure. But as you said, this is really kind of an unusual time. 2022 has been really tough. And as you said, it seems like a retirement, there's a whole host of other issues that need to be accounted for. So let's talk about health care, which was the second prong of that you talked about. Your second item was having affordable health care, even if a retiree's health declines. How should retirees get ready for this?
Yeah, and I'm really glad we were able to touch on this here today, Ron, because it kind of weaves into everything that we've already talked about, right? Not only is healthcare one of the biggest expenses in retirement, but as retirees, longevity gets longer, right? Those latter years may be pretty expensive as far as healthcare goes, right? So we want to make sure that we have a plan for that moving forward with those increased healthcare costs. And we've all dealt with or had healthcare plans either through our work or through getting it privately throughout our lives, right? But as we talk about the changes that come with moving into retirement, having the right healthcare combination really does matter. For 2022, Medicare Part B and Medicare prescription drug coverage can be as low as $170 a month for married couples, but it can also be as high as $578 a month, and that's all based on your taxable income. So that's a cost that you have to not only plan for today, but plan for in the future if you think your income is either going to go up or it's going to go down. A big thing is retirees shouldn't solely rely on Medicare. Medicare picks up about 80% of medical costs. So they have things called Medicare supplement plans and Medicare Advantage plans that can help fill in those gaps that Medicare doesn't necessarily cover.
A lot of people, when you start talking about going on Medicare, a lot of people just kind of assume that Medicare is going to take care of everything. And that is not the case at all. And that's another reason why planning is so essential.
Oh, absolutely. And, they oftentimes, if you're watching, I know for me, if I'm watching ESPN after 10 o'clock at night, you'll see the commercials for Medicare Advantage plans and Medicare supplement plans like that. It's definitely worth exploring for retirees because, to your point, a lot of folks aren't aware of exactly what Medicare covers and what it doesn't cover.
Yeah, I see those same things. I mean, watching any kind of sports, particularly late at night,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to get all that because it's aimed at folks who are, moving up in age and, thinking about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, seniors in good health or who can't afford additional premiums for supplemental coverage may choose a Medicare Advantage plan. And a lot of those don't have any premiums, but what's that all about, Chase?
Yeah, so without getting too much in the weeds on that one, Ron, a Medicare Advantage plan can assist with filling in those gaps that we were just talking about with Medicare. Pick up where Medicare leaves off. And for those who need treatment for specialized doctors or specialized hospitals, they may be better off just staying with the traditional Medicare and buying a Medicare supplement policy to cover those costs that Medicare doesn't. So it's really just important to our kind of overarching point today is not just stick our head in the sand, right? Get a plan and explore plans to see exactly what your individual situation would kind of need, right?
Yeah. You're listening to the Retire Your Way podcast with Chase Lopez. I'm Ron Stutz. And if you'd like to get in touch with Chase and get a conversation going about Medicare or whatever you want to talk about related to your retirement, let me give you the number here really quickly, 540-720-5656. That is 540-720-5656. And we're talking about ILG Financial, office in Stafford, Virginia. And you can find out more online at ilgfinancial.com. Now, Chase, we were talking about the topic of healthcare in retirement, and I know that everybody dreads the thought of ending up in a nursing home. Nobody wants that. Or some sort of assisted living facility, not only because it's unpleasant to think about, but those costs are quite intimidating. Are these healthcare covered situations, Chase?
Yeah, so that's a great point, Ron. And no, those long-term care costs, whether you're an assisted facility or an in-home, care situation, are not covered by healthcare plans. And that's a big misnomer out there with folks who have these, more expensive healthcare plans. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that we bring up, the long-term care situation because, doing this for a long time, this is obviously something that we broach with all of our clients. And I can't tell you, Ron, how many clients we ask and we say, hey, what's your plan for long-term care? Do you have a, insurance policy? Do you plan on paying for it yourself? What's your plan for that? And I will tell you, most clients, what they end up saying is, oh, my kids will just take care of me.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds like a great idea in theory, right? But we've been doing this long enough to know that once that day eventually comes, that's kind of the last thing you want to do is put that burden on your children, right? They have, kids of their own. They have a job that they're doing. You may want to stay with them, right? Just for the simple fact of being close to family. But we still want to account for any extra cost that'll be associated, whether, you're paying a daughter or a son to do the care, or possibly, like we alluded to, have someone come into the home to take care of you so that you can enjoy, hanging out with your family there for those latter years. And the cost, and you alluded to this earlier, the cost can be a lot higher than what kind of people anticipate. Really, there's a big sticker shock when we kind of throw these numbers out there. But the average total cost for long-term care over one's lifetime is about $300. And that's a pretty big bill to consider in retirement, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And these long-term care policies out there have really gotten a lot more expensive than they used to be. And, what in the world do you do if you want to avoid a situation like this?
Boy, and you hit the nail right there on the head, Ron. These long-term care insurance policies have risen substantially in cost. And the reason is those providers that are providing that insurance coverage, they know all of the same things that we just talked about, right? They know people are living longer, and they know that with people living longer, they're going to be in possibly a facility longer or just need care for a longer time. Yeah. So especially with folks that are in retirement and they're on a fixed income, these policies can be very expensive. So before buying one, you definitely want to check exactly what the coverage will be and what you will receive, if you end up needing it. A neat little thing that has come out here in recent years is what they call a hybrid long-term care policy. And it's just a hybrid between a life insurance policy and a long-term care policy. Mm-hmm. And these become really popular. And kind of the 10,000-foot view on these is if the person that owns the policy passes away without needing care, the policy actually turns into a death benefit that goes to that retiree's heirs. So it's not lost money, right? It's not money that we're just paying and it's going to the insurance company and we're never seeing it again.
Yeah. I like the sound of this. I mean, this sounds good.
Well, and it's something that just wasn't available, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. But this is why we always encourage folks to always revisit these things, as we're kind of moving through this thing we call retirement, right? Yeah. These policies can be a little bit more flexible in that, you can use them for in-home or facility care. You can pick who your provider is. So, if you are thinking, hey, I'm going to end up paying for this long-term care out of my own pocket, this can be a great way to get some of that long-term care coverage and say, hey, if I ever don't need it, I can go ahead and pass that on to my heirs.
Yeah. Okay, it seems also that if you just avoid this possibility that you could be in a situation like this altogether, you limit yourself to the options you have. I had no idea, though, Chase, that these options were completely outside of healthcare plans, and I would venture to say that most people out there may be a little surprised by all the things you're talking about here. With that being said, I know you said that the third priority retirees should have was making arrangements to get help if they were to one day no longer have the ability to manage their own affairs.
Right. So as we look at all of what we kind of discussed today, we see the common theme of making sure you are planning not only for retirement, but what it's going to look like in retirement. And now this last topic here, we just want to make sure we plan to have something or someone in place if or when we get to the day where we can no longer plan and manage for ourselves. Mm-hmm. So let me just give you a couple of ideas as far as that goes. Even if retirees are successfully managing their portfolios now, which is a not insignificant amount of people out there, it may be worthwhile to just have a financial advisor review the portfolio just to get a second set of eyes on not only your current plan for your accumulation phase, but as you approach the distribution phase of your retirement plan, what that will kind of look like as well.
Oh, that is so important because you got to have those income streams. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And there's something to be said, right, for someone checking on your portfolio to see if it has suitable investments for you as you start to spend down a lot of this money at a sustainable rate. and it can set your mind at ease. And it's very possible that you may not have to make any crazy changes, right? Just because the market is doing something doesn't mean that your portfolio will kind of follow suit. So you don't want to be making changes based on that kind of information or what you see on the news. It could cause a lot of confusion, right? And we alluded to it at the beginning of our talk today. The rules for investing change as we approach this distribution phase. So it's definitely worth a second set of eyes just to see if you're on the right track.
That's why you should call ILG Financial and have a conversation with Chase Lopez or Dave Lopez. Again, that number is 540-720-5656. We'll give that number again coming up in just a few minutes. And unfortunately, Chase, a lot of people don't even like to think about this, but at some point in all of our lives, it's kind of highly likely that there's going to be some sort of physical or maybe even mental decline. So, the important thing is to start planning now, right?
Yeah, 100%, Ron. That day will, eventually come for most of us, right? We all hope that we have all of our faculties, right? And then we kind of just die in our sleep peacefully, but sometimes that's not kind of how it goes. So now is the time, while you still are as sharp as a knife, as they would say, right? And you still have all of your physical abilities. Now is the time to at least explore delegating future financial planning tasks, especially for folks that are those do-it-yourself investors. And really, for a couple, right? And we see this often, whether it's the husband or the wife. Typically, it's one spouse takes ownership over a lot of the investing and a lot of the financial stuff for a family, right? Well, if that spouse ends up one day being either physically or mentally incapacitated, well, you want to make sure that the surviving spouse has someone on their side to help them navigate through this distribution phase. A lot of times retirees who have a trusted relative or a friend can have what we call a power of attorney agreement or a healthcare proxy. And this is just basically a designated person that can make decisions for a retiree when she or he is no longer able to. Retirees may also need to make arrangements for someone to manage your portfolio. And that's what we can really help with, right? Yeah. If that, day were to ever to come for a lot of those do-it-yourself investors, we can assist the surviving spouse navigate through that distribution phase as we talked about.
Yeah, that is difficult to take care of all those things, and that is why it's so important to have someone like Chase Lopez, Dave Lopez at ILG Financial. If you do become incapacitated and you don't have a financial power of attorney in place, as Chase just mentioned, nobody can act on your behalf and pay for your health care needs or your liabilities. So Chase, at the end of the day here, I think he made it pretty clear that based on each person's situation, goals, and what have you, the rules might change in their retirement. And if they fail to acknowledge this and address it, it could be detrimental to their plan.
You hit the nail right on the head, Ron. Make sure you reach out to your financial professional, whether you have a plan that you put in place in the past, you're kind of a do-it-yourselfer person, or if you have no plan whatsoever, just to get a second set of eyes from someone who is looking through the retirement lens or the distribution lens, as we like to say, as opposed to the accumulation lens. Remember, your plan should not get you to retirement. It should get you through retirement.
Well, Chase, I know that you hope you're going to get a lot of phone calls from folks getting in touch with you to talk about this possibility. It's not going to cost you anything at all to ask you some questions and get acquainted and start to explore some of these possibilities. I know that that very first time you talk with someone, you're probably going to talk about all of these things, right?
Oh yeah, and what we like to tell folks is, and I like to make this analogy, right? If we were to, go to someone's job and say, hey, give me an hour run through, and I'm going to be an expert, right? I'm going to be able to I'm going to be able to do everything you do, at your job. You would look at me funny and say, whoa, Chase, this is going to take a little bit more time, right? We're going to need to really dig in, show you exactly kind of how it's done, and show you the process to get to that final task, right? And that's what we've done over here at ILG Financial. We've been able to, by building out hundreds of plans, whittle this down to a systematic process to make sure that we're not missing anything as we move through retirement, so there's not any surprises for folks out there.
Well, Chase, this has been a really helpful conversation today for me and for everyone listening. And I certainly appreciate your sharing all these thoughts. And I'm already looking forward to our next get-together on the Retire Your Way podcast.
Thanks, Ron. Really do appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me today.
Now you are one step closer to learning what a customized retirement strategy can do for you. Stay tuned for more of ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast coming your way soon. We appreciate your listening today. Income, legacy, growth, it's all right here at ILG Financial. We've been talking with Chase Lopez today. Call ILG Financial at 540-720-5656, or you can go online to ilgfinancial.com to learn more. Thanks for listening. The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of Dave Lopez and do not necessarily represent the views of the Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory services offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and ILG Financial, LLC are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.